Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to The Truth, where today we are going to be going over my first, um, getting into the 2025, I believe that's what it would be, my first quarterback grades. We're going to talk about Quinn Ewers' freshman year, and then we're going to talk about some NFL news that could be interesting, start a discussion, see what y'all think. Um, Firstly, we're going to get into Quinn Ewers' his freshman season. It kind of felt up and down while grading it, but actually looking back at it, most of it was pretty consistent until the back end of his season where he really started popping off. That's when he really started doing well. So, for instance, games like uh, games like Kentucky or versus Baylor, or those two games in the back end really helped him out. He played really efficient. One thing I will notice about that offense that they ran that year was the fact that they really stuck to the run. And when they stuck to the run, Creighton Ewers felt more calm, and he felt like he could just kind of take advantage of the defense easier. Excuse me, I'm gonna drink some water. Gotta stay hydrated. Um, it felt like okay, he's actually making strides. He can do some things. He did take some sacks. Most of them weren't his fault. There were a couple that were. I do want to note his game against TCU was a very poor game. Um, I graded that 47.8. Wasn't really his best. He did have some that was the only game that dipped below 50% for success rating wise for me. And just to remind y'all, what does success rating mean? Success rating is on a per play basis. I go through and go, okay, um, is this the is this basically the perfect play you could have made? Okay, is this a play that it needs some work to be a really good play or a perfect play in quotation marks, or is this a bad play or a drive ending play? Stuff like that. Um, going through it, he most of the time he was about 60% success rating throughout his freshman year. Nothing crazy. There were some games where he dipped into the 50s. Ideally for a freshman, you want to stay in the 60 range. 60 to 65 is kind of where you expect a freshman to be. Um, Somewhere where it's kind of like, okay, you're here, you're kind of chilling. Um, like this is what's kind of expected of a freshman who's being looked at to go to the NFL. Um, some things to note: he did spend his first time in at Ohio and then transferred to Texas. Um, he's a guy coming out of Texas from going to Ohio, then back to Texas, the actual college now. Um, Stuff like that. Getting into my if I can grab it real quickly. Getting into my discussion about him, I basically the things I basically said were you know it's kind of like I talked about before. It's really interesting. He's a decent quarterback with a lot of potential. He has quality pocket presence and reads defense as well. His tendencies to focus on the deep ball only tends to have him miss an open target, whether that be in the intermediate range or as a check down. Quality passing accuracy wise, could use some work. He has had some moments where it's like, dang, that's a pretty good throw. I was like, oh, if you throw it a little bit more this way, you give your receiver an ability to go make a play. There really weren't too like many throws where it's like, there might have been like a couple, but nah, it wasn't that bad. Um, Expectation wise, I think people coming out of his freshman season are a little too high on him. They're kind of his expectations are really high. And it's like, well, we'll see. It's kind of like, hey, he's a freshman. He makes his mistakes. Let's see. I want him to get into that 65 to as a sophomore, given that 65 to 70% range. Um, like I said before, I think people are a little high going into next season. Other than that, for a freshman quarterback, it wasn't a bad season. It's where you expect him to be. Um, his overall season overview, I had him graded at a 64.6%, which is actually pretty well. Like he's almost to where you expect the base minimum for a sophomore to be, in my case. So it's pretty well. He's above where he needs to be. He's almost above where he needs to be, which is good. You want someone who's kind of in that next caliber of player to where you can kind of look at in the NFL draft. He's had some solid games. There are some games where he does make some mistakes. Um, Oklahoma State, two interceptions were his fault. It's dumb plays. You're kind of like, why are you throwing into double coverage? That's not smart. You're kind of still focusing on the deep ball. You're trying to get it all when you just need to be patient and let things develop, or just read the coverage better and find your guy. One of them was, I think it was either a receiver or a tight end, dropped the ball, became a tip drill, and ended up in the defensive hands. So, entirely, he really had, I think, 5 interceptions, but a total of 28 bad plays. And remember, bad plays are plays that are deemed really bad / drive ending. So, or potentially drive ending as well. So that's no. Getting into the topics I want to talk about. John Lynch, 49ers GM, talking about how he wants to keep his receivers, I think is interesting. I was kind of, a lot of people were thinking, including me, was thinking, hey, this is probably going to be Debo or Ayuk, especially with who they have to pay. It's going to be really tough for them to do that. If they don't, they keep their guys, which is respectful. Doesn't mean they can't get traded later. It just means they're not trying to trade them now. Another thing is Najee Harris option declined for the Steelers running back. It makes sense just because of the position and not the player. I know Najee Harris has had his critiques, but for the position, it makes sense. Teams don't typically like to give fifth-year options. They try to find a cheaper deal, because of running backs. They value them as low. They don't really value them that high. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was a cheaper deal per year, but for multiple years. Scrolling down, if I can find it, I wanted to talk about not this. One, the Steelers declining Justin Fields' 50 option. That was interesting because you're really putting a lot of faith in Russell Wilson. You're putting a lot of faith in Russell Wilson, in which I don't think you should. Look, if you can get that run game going and you can build off of it, Russ is going to have a great season. But if not, I feel like Justin Fields might be better. Um, look, I like Justin Fields. I think he has a lot of potential. You just gotta let him eat. You gotta let him eat. I think he's gonna be. I think he has the potential to be a really good quarterback, and we saw flashes in Chicago, especially last year. It's just, is he gonna get that opportunity once presented? Because I feel like it will be presented. It's just if he's gonna be able to get it. Um, Scrolling down, if I can find it, there's one video that I really want to talk about with y'all. If it pops up, if not, then I'll just bring it back. I'll just scroll back up and then we'll talk about it. I don't think it's here, sadly enough, because I had it. Yeah. Okay, so the topic is: are the Chiefs going to be able to three-peat? It's tough to say because technically this is their like gap year or break year or kind of for a year. We're saying like, hey, your set year. We're saying, hey, You don't have to win a Super Bowl. You won it last year. Where are you going to set yourselves to build off of that? And the Chiefs are actually pretty confident in coming back to back to back the three-peat, which hasn't been done before in NFL history. So you're kind of sitting here going, is that really going to happen though? Like, they have some good players. Oh, here it is. They have some good players. I think they have the ability to do it. It depends on that defense. It depends on the loss of L'Jarius Sneed, how that's gonna come up with. Um, the loss of Rasheed Rice. That's also an impactful one because Patrick Mahomes loved him. An aging Travis Kelsey. Stuff like that are going to be really interesting to see what the Chiefs are going to do. They also lost some pieces in defense. Um, Willie Gay, another piece that they lost. It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. If that defense can be like how it was last season, I think they have a chance because it was just so dominant and so good. I don't want the Chiefs to make the same mistake they did last season. I want them to start running the ball like they did at the end of last season. If they do that this coming season, I think they'll have lots of success. I'd like to see play action built on top of it. I'd like to see some base plays as well. Andy Reid's creativeness. I'd love to see that. Um, if they can do that, I think they have a really good chance. They always put together pretty quality, well pieces. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. But other than that, thank you all for watching, and I will talk to y'all